close it, and that will close it. And then I put this ball, which I bought for only $1 on Temu, the site called Temu, and it's very, very cheap on there. So it's not real fur, so I like that about it because it's not real fur. And you can make a bunch of these and buy a bunch of the pom-poms, and this is gonna be winter jam for sure. And I actually didn't realize, but I think I might need more yarn, and this yarn is called Big Twist by Joann. I think it's the only place that sells this Big Twist, but they're really cheap in their website. They're like $2 to something, maybe almost $3. But I think that I need more because I ordered. I thought I would be able to use one ball, which is a huge, for 2 hats, but it's not enough. I think I'm gonna be needing more of that, so we'll see. But I'm about to end with the balls, and I still have so much. I think I still have like 10 more rows to do, so I don't know how I'm gonna make it. We'll see. This story that I found for you guys is truly ominous, and I thought it would be an appropriate story for you guys since we are on Halloween week right now. By the way, guys, I'm not sure if this story will be posted on actual Halloween or a few days after Halloween, because I might not have time to edit, but nonetheless, it's still Halloween week, so I hope you guys understand that it's still Halloween themed. But the story is so upsetting to me because have you noticed I don't usually like to talk about deaths of little kids. It's not one of my favorite subjects. I don't like to bring it up. I don't like to have stories about that. But this story made the whole nation pretty much in the 70s to be fearful on Halloween Day. That's why I decided to talk about it. It's probably a pretty famous story. A lot of people have heard of it. I will bring some details that might be new information to you. The actions of this man ruined Halloween for kids in the United States for years. Let's start from the beginning. Ronald Clark O'Brien was born on October 19th, 1944. He was born in Houston, Texas. Now, there's not that much known about his life, his childhood especially, but we do know that in his 20s, he ended up moving to Deer Park, Texas, and this is where he resided most of his life. Ronald married a woman named Danine, and they had 2 beautiful children together. The children's names were Timothy and Elizabeth. In 1974, Timothy was 8 years old and Elizabeth was 5 years old. Ronald worked as an optician at Texas State Optical, and he was also a deacon at his Baptist church. At the church, he also sang in choir. Ronald was also in charge of the local bus program. So on the outside, Ronald was all around a great guy. And if you guys don't know how to make a double crochet, there's videos for that. I will try to make one as well on my TikTok, by the way. But you just yarn over, go inside the chain, and then come out with 3 loops. And then instead of yarning over and pulling through 2 loops and then doing 2 loops again like a double crochet, you just pull through all 3 loops. That's it. everyone loved him in the community. He was always on his free time in church, helping there. And that's the backstory for Ronald O'Brien. I am using 2 yarns, by the way, because it makes the hat a little bit more thick with no holes. Little secret. On October 31st, 1974, Ronald O'Brien, along with his friend and neighbor Jim Bates, decided to take their kids, Ronald's 2 kids and Jim's 2 kids, to go trick-or-treating to another neighborhood where it was more wealthier neighborhood. So the dads together decided that it would be better for the kids to go to a better neighborhood to get better candy there. They drove them to Pasadena, Texas. Neighbor Jim Bates would wait on a sidewalk as Ronald O'Brien would go up to the doors with children. One of these houses that they went to was, for some reason, really dark. There was no lights outside. And also there was a wall that concealed the front door. So as Jim Bates was waiting on the sidewalk, Ronald went in this house to knock on the door with the kids. Jim Bates did not see what's going on there because of the wall, but soon after the kids came out running to the next house, and Ronald wasn't appearing for a while, so they ended up just going as a group to the next house. And then Ronald appeared after a few minutes, and when he appeared, he in his hands had 5 21-inch pixie sticks. I didn't even know that those kind of pixie sticks existed, such a ginormous pixie sticks. However, I actually ended up looking it up, and apparently they did exist for a long time in United States, but they were banned. Just the giant pixie sticks were banned in 2011 due to a health threat by Grand Rapids Middle School, because it turned out that some students were pretending to smoke them, and they would light them up and pretend like they're cigarettes, and would end up getting infections in their lungs, and some of them got really sick. I'm not sure why it was only happening with the giant pixie sticks, because the smaller ones look more like cigarettes than the giant ones, but they banned the giant ones after that. Also, thinking about it, it looks like pixie sticks is just powdered sugar, so I can see so many wrong things that can go with that. I mean, you can put anything in them, and I would think that you can transfer like drugs in them and stuff like that, because it's just powdered sugar. So it's kind of weird that they exist, and it looks like they are actually thinking to discontinue pixie sticks altogether soon. Ronald comes with these huge pixie sticks filled with powdered sugar. He claimed that the residents of the weird dark house that they went to, that nobody opened the door there, but they actually did open the door after the kids left. And he said that they should have waited longer because they ended up giving him 5 pixie sticks, and that's all they gave him, and closed the door. The night got cut short because it began to rain pretty badly that night, so they decided to stop trick-or-treating and head back home. So at the end of the night, Ronald gave each kid a pixie stick. 1 to each kid, because he had 5. So he gave 1 to Timothy, his son, 1 to Elizabeth, his daughter, and then 1 to each of the neighbor kids, the 2 kids that went with them, and then 1 to a neighbor boy who was walking by, and he was also trick-or-treating. He was 10 years old, and he also got a pixie stick because he was just walking by, and Ronald had an extra one, so he gave him 1. excited that he get to have some kind of candy before bed, and he took the pixie stick, ripped off the top, and tried to pour it in his mouth. However, it would not come out because it was stuck. It's powdered sugar, so sometimes that happens. Then Ronald saw that Timothy is struggling. He came up and helped shake it loose, and the stick for the candy to fall in Timothy's mouth. And right away, as it got in Timothy's mouth, Timothy began to complain that the candy is very bitter and gross. So Ronald went to the kitchen and got a Kool-Aid for Timothy to wash it down, and that didn't help. Timothy still continued to feel gross in his mouth, and I'm surprised that Ronald didn't think that the powder from the pixie stick that is bitter is not suspicious. It came from a weird house that had no lights on, and all of a sudden the powder is bitter. So not long after Ronald gave Timothy a Kool-Aid, Timothy began to complain that he has a stomachache and is feeling sick. Then Timothy states that he is feeling nauseous and runs to the bathroom. He doesn't make it all the way to the bathroom. He begins to vomit all over the floor, and then he falls to the ground, and on the ground he is shaking like he's having a seizure. He is having a convulsion. This is when Ronald ended up calling 911 and said to the dispatch that his son just went limp when he tried to pick him up. So paramedics arrived immediately along with the police. They loaded Timothy to the ambulance, trying to rush him to the hospital. Detectives asked the doctor who last saw Timothy what his breath smelled like before he died, and the doctor said that it smelled like almonds. Apparently, it's a telltale sign that if your breath smells like almonds, you are poisoned by cyanide. The pathologist later confirmed this and said that the boy consumed enough cyanide to kill 2 adults. Cyanide was found in his blood and in his stomach fluids. Police later discovered that Elizabeth also had a pixie stick that was packed with cyanide, and the top 2 inches of the pixie stick was cyanide, and then the rest was candy. So news got out to the public that this boy died from cyanide poisoning by eating a Halloween candy. And this was a small town, so it spread so far around this town, and parents became concerned, of course. So everyone threw away their candy or gave them to the police to see if they were also poisoned. And this is what kind of ruined Halloween for those kids, because they couldn't eat the candy they got. Police also recovered the pixie sticks that the neighbor kids got. Remember, there were other pixie sticks that were given out, and they were all poisoned. They also noticed that whoever tampered with those pixie person. And finally, Ronald said he does remember. So he took them to that house. Police knocked on the door, but there was no answer. Nobody was home. It didn't take long for police to figure out who lives at this house. It was a guy named Courtney Malvin with his wife and daughter. Courtney Malvin was an air traffic controller. So police decided to go to the Houston Hobby airport where he worked and arrested him right in front of everybody. All of his co-workers saw him being arrested and taken to jail. However, during the interrogation, police found out that Courtney Malvin had a solid alibi that night. He was working actually overnight shift, and there were 200 other employees that were able to vouch for him. Moreover, the daughter and mom were home at that time, but they turned off the lights on purpose because they didn't have any candy to give out anymore. They ran out of candy. So this is the reason why the house was so dark outside. They just didn't want people to come into their house and trick-or-treating there. Police also fact-checked everything and found that they didn't even have any pixie sticks that they gave out that night, and there were no pixie sticks at home or anywhere in that house. There was no reason to believe that wife and daughter were involved in this, so Courtney Malvin was also ruled out as a suspect. And police also questioned the whole neighborhood where the kids went trick-or-treating, and nobody had any pixie sticks at their house or anywhere. Police then decided to look more into Ronald O'Brien, the father of Timothy. And police discovered shocking information that Ronald was actually far from being a model citizen as he was described by many. First of all, Ronald struggled holding down jobs. Over a 10-year period, he had been employed by 21 different companies. What? And mostly was fired from the previous jobs as well. He didn't just leave. And he was fired mostly for negligence and fraudulent behavior. In October of 1974, he was actually facing being fired again from Texas State Optical, where he was working, on suspicion that he was stealing money from there. Moreover, Ronald really struggled financially, and he only made about $150 a month, which is roughly $900 a month today. And as you can imagine, there's no way to be able to survive on this money with 2 children. It was also discovered that Ronald was $100,000 in debt and has defaulted in numerous bank loans. Also, his vehicle was on the verge of being repossessed. It was also discovered that before that dreadful Halloween night, Ronald took out life insurance policies on both kids. He took out $10,000 in 1974, and this was for each child. And by the way, $10,000 in 1974 would be $60,000. So that would be for each child $120,000 that he took out. Which I $20,000 for each child and life insurance policies, and that's $40,000 for each child. That would convert to $240,000 in today's money. That's a crazy amount. And he did that 2 times. So he would have 480 together with the 60,000, I think. So that's a lot of money. Ronald's wife claimed that she had no idea that Ronald has been taking out money from the policies this whole time. On the morning of Timothy's death, Ronald called the insurance company and inquired about collecting the money. Police also discovered from some witnesses that Ronald went to a wholesale chemical store and he was inquiring about cyanide there. Moreover, investigators discovered that Ronald was taking some classes at Harris County Community College. I'm not sure which degree he was trying to perceive, but he, in one of his classes, asked the instructor how much cyanide it would take to kill certain types of animals, which the instructor thought was really weird. At this point, police began to suspect that Ronald wanted to kill his 2 children to collect the life insurance money. I mean, everything was pointing to that. Police believe that Ronald laced the candies with poison to try to kill his children, and then he poisoned the other candies too to make it less suspicious and to cover up his crimes. However, after repeated questioning, Ronald maintained his innocence, despite the fact that police was never able to find where Ronald was able to buy cyanide, because the only place that would sell it was the wholesale chemical store, and they would only sell it in no less than 5 pounds, which is a lot. Cut off pixie stick ends were found at Ronald's house, all 5 of them. Despite claiming his innocence and stating that he did not murder his son, he was still charged for the murder of Timothy O'Brien on November 5th, 1974, and he was indicted on 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. However, Ronald entered a non-guilty plea on all 5 counts. The trial began in Houston, May 5th, 1975, and at the trial there were some testimonies from people that Ronald actually inquired about cyanide. A chemist came forward and said that he was asking him about how much cyanide he should use, how much is fatal, and some friends and people said that he would ask where he would be able to buy a small amount of cyanide. Friends and co-workers testified saying that Ronald had an unusual interest of cyanide for some reason. He would always talk about it recently. Also, Ronald's sister and brother-in-law, they testified saying that at the funeral for Timothy, Ronald was discussing how he's gonna spend the money from the life insurance for Timothy and how he's gonna this was at Timothy's funeral. I mean, what kind of grieving parent, a father, would, think about something else besides their child just dying recently? There's no other thoughts probably going through your head right now, and vacation would be the last thing in your mind, I would assume. Dainine also testified, saying that Timothy's first choice was not to eat the pixie stick, according to the daughter Elizabeth, because Dainine wasn't home. But Elizabeth said that the dad kind of forced him to get the pixie stick because he's like, this is the only candy you can get, no other candy, pretty much, except this pixie stick. So that's all he had. And during this trial, Ronald's defense team brought on an urban legend that stated that there was a mad poisoner, and this mad poisoner would hand out candies on Halloween laced with all sorts of drugs and apples with razors in them. That sounds painful if you bite into that kind of apple. Because this incident happened on Halloween and sort of ruined Halloween for many years after that, people were scared to go trick-or-treating. Press began calling Ronald O'Brien the Candyman. On June 3rd, 1975, after 45 minutes of deliberation, jury decided that Ronald O'Brien is guilty. And he was guilty of 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. Jury took only 71 minutes to decide that. He should be sentenced to death by electrocution. I think electrocution is probably the worst death ever. And also the firing squad. But I think the firing squad would be like a faster death, maybe, than electrocution, which you feel everything. It's kind of both. Shortly after Ronald was convicted, his wife, of course, filed for divorce, ended up divorcing him, and she remarried and happily lived with her daughter, who the new husband adopted, so that's good. Ronald was confined at the Ellis 1 unit prison in Houston, Texas, and Ronald was completely friendless there because inmates despised him, even though they were all on death row at this unit. But everyone despised him there with passion because they found out that he killed a child, and that's really bad in prison. The inmates actually petitioned for his execution to be a public demonstration because they hated him so much. In 1977, Texas adopted a lethal injection as a method of execution and got rid of any other methods. So that means that Ronald wasn't gonna get electrocuted anymore. On March 31st, 1984, after many reschedules of the state of execution and a one appeal, I think, the time finally came for Ronald to be executed. He was executed on this day shortly after midnight. In his words, he said that he is innocent and that he feels sad about the people that decided to execute him. He said that the execution is wrong in his opinion. He also said that he will pray for everyone's forgiveness and he hopes to also be forgiven when he dies. So what do you guys think about that story? Do you think he did it? And also, do you believe in capital punishment like death, execution? Let me know in your comments. I'm really interested to know that. I actually had to write a paper about that. I have my own opinion, since you know I did finish school for criminal justice, so I had to write a lot of papers on that. I am not actually sure if capital punishment was appropriate for that case, but that's just my opinion. And I have this so far made, so I think I have like 32 rows and I still have to get like to 46